if you want to start going to the gym, you don't join a group of people who want to start going to the gym. You join a group of people who are already going to the gym every single day, because you will feel that pressure to join them, to be like them, to go and do what they do. And there's a power in that. And that is part of cultivating your environment, instead of being a victim to the environment that has been keeping you the same. So it's almost like you're trying to fake it till you make it. It's that time of the year where everybody's setting new goals. 2026, it's a new year, it's a fresh start, and we want to achieve a lot this year. And what I find is that we always have the same approach, or there's this very popular approach called the SMART approach. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Very logical. It's a very logical way of setting goals. But now we ask ourselves, if this is a very great system, if it's such a logical and really good and perfect system, why does it keep on failing? Why do we keep on setting the same goals year after year? And why do we keep on resetting them again and struggling with this? Well, that's something that I want us to talk about. And the truth is, it doesn't work because we're not just logical beings. We're more complex than that. We're emotional, we're spiritual, and there's so many sides and dimensions to us that we need to consider in our goal setting. So today, I want us to dig deeper. Why do we fall off? What happens? What causes us to default from the very goals that we keep on setting year after year that we want so badly? What is happening in our mindset in the long days, the hard days? What is actually going on underneath? You're listening to Healthy Hypocrites. This is the podcast where we get real about health, science, and faith, and we also get vulnerable. I'm Tumi. I'm your host. I'm a dietitian and lactation consultant and a fellow at HYPOCRITES. And I believe that wellness isn't about perfection, but rather about intention, honesty, and grace. And each week, we are going to unpack different topics in terms of science, in terms of spirituality, and in terms of health, so that we can live a whole life and not just a healthy life. Before we go anywhere, before we even start with this topic, I want us to do something I call the confession jar, right? So this is a jar full of different questions relevant to today's topic that is going to push me to be vulnerable in front of you guys, but it's also going to be pushing you guys to be honest with yourselves. So if you're ready to answer this question and be vulnerable, comment down below, send me a DM, say it out loud. If you're listening to this through a podcast app, say the answer out loud to yourself, because I'm gonna pull something out of here. I don't know what it is, but let's just see. Drum roll, please. What New Year's resolution do you keep on resetting? What a big question for a dietitian. What New Year's resolution do I keep resetting? That's huge. So if I'm being honest, I think it's the same that everybody keeps on resetting. It's a weight loss goal. And weight loss is so subjective, because someone might look at you and be like, oh my gosh, you don't need to lose weight. But you have your own personal goals that you want to achieve. So I keep on resetting this weight loss goal of 50 kgs. And I've been setting this goal since like 2020. It's been like 5 years in the making. And what I realized my biggest problem is when it comes to resetting this New Year's resolution is I have not seen a dietitian yet, because I am a dietitian. And because I'm a dietitian, I obviously cannot dietitian myself. People might think that it's easy, but doctors don't see themselves when they're sick. They go to a doctor. So I would say my biggest problem there is I need to go see a dietitian. I need that accountability. I need someone who's going to track my progress. So that is the New Year's resolution that I fund resetting. And there's so many other aspects as to why I keep resetting it as well. But those are the things that we're going to get into in this video. Okay. So let's look at what the research is saying. So some studies that I looked at actually revealed that we set different kinds of New Year's resolutions. So we set financial, career, and health and weight kind of resolutions. And they found that the ones that we set when it comes to health and weight are the most likely to fail, which is something I found insane. And when we look at it, and the reason why we don't achieve these things is because we're trying to change the symptom and not the system. And so we stay stuck in these cycles that us where we are, not take us where we want to be. A 2017 randomized control trial, which is basically a type of study, actually found that there are some reasons for why people usually fail. These are the most common reasons, the things that I'm about to say. And the first one that I'm going to mention is actually something I have been guilty of in the past, but I see it very commonly in a lot of my clients that come and see me, is that people have an all or nothing approach. A lot of time we think if I don't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. But that's a flawed way of thinking, and that's something we're going to go into. But let's go to the other reasons as to why New Year's resolutions fail. Emotional eating out of stress, regulating emotions through food, burnout, having no recovery time, but also being overly ambitious and then feeling guilt or shame when you don't achieve that. And so unfortunately, what ends up happening on a short-term basis is that we end up harvesting feelings of guilt and shame. And so we end up saying, I'm either going to live my life and do everything I want, and I'm going to binge, and I'm going to eat everything that I desire and want, or I'm going to restrict once I felt like I've done too much. And so we go in and out of that cycle. That is what happens on a short-term basis. On a long-term basis, that's when we look at more, long life issues like weight gain, insulin resistance, losing your confidence, and also getting very emotionally exhausted. But on the bright side, and I'm not saying this because I'm an optimistic person, I'm saying this because I've seen people really transform and really change. On the bright side, we're humans. And so we're always in positions where we can adapt, we can always reinvent ourselves, and we can always change the path that we're currently on, although it is not easy. So it helps a lot when we tell ourselves, or when we remind ourselves, that we do not need to be perfect. We very often just need one small thing that we're going to repeat daily and daily and daily that will actually help and compound and get us to a higher place than we were before. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And this is a point where faith and science actually agree and meet and say that change actually starts internally from the inside rather than externally. So where do we start? We start when we choose awareness over being overly ambitious, where we choose to create systems instead of relying on motivation. And when I say that, actually, I'm reminded of something, a quote, and please don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% what the exact quote was, but it was in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I have yet to read it because I only just started reading the book, but I did hear about this clip where he said, we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, which was insane and a very powerful thing to say, because yes, we want things, yes, we desire things, but if we haven't set systems in place that are going to help us be better than we were yesterday, then we're going to stay in the same place, which is crazy. But anyway, other things where we start and how we're going to start to make these changes and actually achieve these new resolutions this year is to change our environments instead of relying on our willpower, as well as relying on consistency instead of intensity. Okay, so throughout this podcast, we're going to break down a few of the biggest things that actually get in our way in terms of these New Year's resolutions. So the very biggest challenge, and I'd say this is a challenge for me, but also a challenge for almost anyone and everyone that I've seen as a patient. Almost, right? Not everyone, is procrastination. This is a very human, very biological, very natural issue. And anyone and everyone can relate to this in some kind of way. But it is the biggest challenge when it comes to achieving your New Year's resolution goals. And science actually says that it's not a matter of us struggling when it comes to time management, but actually it's a matter of us struggling when it comes to emotional management, emotional regulation. An entrepreneur and the YouTube content creator that I always watch his videos, his name is Marin Golden. And he said something to me that really stuck out to me when I was watching one of his videos, where he said that procrastination is not the problem, but rather it is the symptom of the problem. And the real problem is actually anxiety. And the more research I did on this topic, the more I found that there is some truth to that. Common themes in research basically mention that the feelings that we're avoiding when we're procrastinating, there's a spectrum, there's a few of them, and one of them is anxiety. But just to name others, it's the fear of failure, being overwhelmed, and also a little bit of imposter syndrome. And so what's happening in the brain is that we're looking for comfort. We're looking to be comfort, and we do not want to experience or feel those uncomfortable emotions that we're anticipating. And so there's this section of the brain, which I learned about for the very first time, called the limbic system, which is the part of the brain that makes decisions when you're under stress or when you're under pressure. And so that part of brain dominates and actually decides on what to do. And so that's why we say things to ourselves like, I'll start tomorrow, or it's already ruined, I have to start again on another day, or, when we postpone and we postpone and postpone. And so our brain and our bodies are trying to keep us safe, and so they keep us comfortable, and so they keep us in the same place. Okay. So now you ask yourself, okay, we're not doomed, by the way. For whoever's thinking, oh no, I'm doomed, my biology is not allowing me to change or be anything else. That's not true. What we want to do in this situation is we want to start having more of an open mind and invite discomfort, right? So what does this look like? What does it look like to invite discomfort? This means setting 1 or 2 micro steps, the smallest possible thing that is the least intimidating that we can start with today. And if I were to give you some examples, things like that would be like maybe saying every single morning you're doing 2 push-ups, no matter what. Come rain, come sunshine, you are doing those 2 push-ups. It needs to be something that is not so big that you start making excuses. It needs to be something that doesn't require more than 2 steps for you to do. But if you say something like, every morning at 5 a.m. I'm going to play tennis, then it becomes complicated because it adds a lot of steps. First, you need to get up early. Then you need to put on the clothes for the tennis. You need to drive there. You need to decide who you're going to play tennis with. Make sure that they show up. So it's a whole lot of steps that you've just created that it's like you're inviting your limbic system to say, relax. So what I'd say is choose what will give you the least excuses. Like, for example, if you're brushing your teeth, maybe you can say, I'm going to do 2 squats every day while I'm brushing your teeth. You will brush your teeth regardless. You will do it anyway. So we might as well add something that will help you achieve more of a better goal. So that is just a very nice way that we can start to achieve the things that we have set out for ourselves. Is set small micro things that are actually achievable and are actually repeatable. Now, another thing, and this is a huge aspect that we overlook, is our environment. So behavioral science studies have found that our environment are actually the main predictor of success, of habit success. Instead of relying on motivation, our environment automates our behavior almost. And when I say environment, I want you to think about everything, right? Our environment is not just where we are, what's around us, but it's your job. Is your job a job where you are, encouraged to take a lunch break? Or are you, is the culture saying that you need to work through lunch? Do you walk to work? Do you drive to work? Do you work your work hours, or are you extending into the day? What is the work culture there? Does everybody buy food? Does everybody pack lunch? What are things that are done at work that can influence your decisions on a daily basis? Your family. What kind of family do you have? Do they rely on takeout? Do they cook food? Do they like snacks a lot? Are there snacks all around the house? Your home. Is your kitchen messy? Is it clean? Is your kitchen set up in such a way that it's so easy to make a healthy meal? Is your room messy? Are your gym clothes even clean? So those are also things that we look at. Friends. What kind of things are your friends into? Do your friends exercise? Do they not exercise? Do they prioritize healthy eating? Do they not prioritize that? Your space, we just spoke about, where you are. But also, the more obvious, your geographical surroundings. When you're at home, is the smell of KFC flying through the window? Like what's actually around your house? When you drive out, what are the things that you see? On your way back Oh, what are the things that, that you see that might make you tempted to have something? So it's a whole lot of things that affect us on a daily basis that we actually don't realize, or the things that we don't think about. So if I can give you an example, if your kitchen's maybe messy, you're not gonna feel like making a meal. You're just gonna feel like probably buying something, because you have to first clean your kitchen, and then then you can make something. If your wardrobe is messy, are you going to have the will and the power to loaf for the gym clothes? Probably not. If your family is a family that buys snacks in bulk and keeps them in the house, that is something in your environment that is there. It's a temptation, because it's there for you. Of course, you're gonna want to grab a snack quickly. So another thing to think about is, if the people in your life, which are part of your environment, um, always turn to food for comfort, then that's something that you're going to adopt. And when you think about your environment, it becomes very overwhelming to say, oh my goodness, there's all of these things around me that are keeping me stuck, that are keeping me in the same place. How will I ever win? Okay, so I mentioned this environment thing not to make you feel like that, but remember, we're always on a level of awareness. We always want to see, what is it that's getting in my way, and how can I actually use this to help me? So I'm going to go into the second practical tip of this video. And so that is to change what you can and add good things to your environment. So for example, you have your house, you have your space, and you can control that. You cannot control what your family members do. You cannot control what your friends do. You cannot control what people at work do, but you can control your immediate environment, right? So things as simple as keeping a cluster-free kitchen can make a difference, and keeping something like a fruit basket, right? Keeping something like a fruit basket in your kitchen and making sure it's always stocked up will encourage you to grab a fruit on your way out, instead of, let's say you had like a sweet jar, right? Instead of grabbing the sweet on your way out. But only if it's bothering you. Remember that we only want to work on things that are actively and every day setting you back and holding you back. So maybe it would make a huge difference if the sweet jar is in the cupboard, in the wardrobe, out of sight, but the fruit basket is within your sight. And so that is a small change in your environment that can make a huge difference in your everyday life. Another thing that really helps is joining communities that already do the thing that you want to do. And this is a very sensitive one, because I can easily say to you, join a community that is trying to do what you're trying to do. And although that might be helpful on a motivational level, it might not be so helpful on an accountability level. There's a power in joining a group that is doing what you want to do. If you want to start going to the gym, you don't join a group of people who want to start going to the gym. You join a group of people who are already going to the gym every single day, because you will feel that pressure to join them, to be like them, to go and do what they do. And there's a power in that. And that is part of cultivating your environment, instead of being a victim to the environment that has been keeping you the same. So it's almost like you're trying to fake it till you make it. And something, the 2017 study that I spoke about earlier actually says that success comes from being proactive, having a proactive approach instead of having a reactive approach. And what we're trying to do speaks more to that. Instead of trying to say, no, I'm going to cut out this and this and this friend because they're part of the environment that encourages me to stay, and say, no. Instead, include such and such friends that you see are doing the thing that you want to do, and spend more time with them, engage more with them, and you'll see what a difference that makes. So now that we've spoken about the internal and the external things that actually affect us in terms of our New Year's resolutions, just to recap, the internal is the procrastination that happens, right? And then the external is the environment that we're in. Now that we've actually addressed that, we need to reapproach SMART goals, our specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and type on. Let's see how we can reapproach that, including those things, right? So this is now my third tip for you, right? And we're going to redefine SMART goals. Just before we redefine them, the reason why we need to redefine them, just a reminder, is because SMART goals is a beautiful concept, but it ignores the fact that we are emotional beings, right? It doesn't consider burnout and exhaustion. There's no room for mistakes. There's no room for trauma. It doesn't consider your faith or your mental health, and it relies way too much on motivation. And so what we're trying to find is a human approach, something that will actually help and transform us on a very real level. So let's redefine it, okay? Let's start from S, specific and self-aware. Something that I mentioned very earlier on in this podcast is that I'm struggling to get to this 50 kgs because I know that I need accountability and I'm not doing it, right? So what does that mean? If I decide to be specific and self-aware, it means that I'm standing myself up for a dietitian, because that is me being aware of something that I need in order to achieve this goal, specific and self-aware. So reflect, what kind of support do you need? M, measurable, but with backup plans. So obviously we want to say, okay, I want to achieve this by this particular time. We break it up in by the week, we break it up by the day as to what needs to happen. But we also want to, for example, if you say I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes and it's going to be a run every single time, I want you to think about, what if that doesn't work out? What if it rains? What if you burn out? What if you travel? What are you going to do instead? What is the backup plan? So think about those kind of things. 8, attainable but anchored to your environment. Think about all of the things around you that might influence you to not do the thing, right? So for example, and this is the biggest one for my clients, especially my mothers, right? My mother clients, is that they have to cook a meal for the family, and then they have to cook a meal for them to keep them on the journey. How long can you keep that up? Is that really realistic? What about, you actually see a dietitian who can help you come up with one meal that will still speak to your family's taste buds, but also help you stay in line with your goals, right? And T, did I leave out R? R is still relevant, right? Because we want to still do goals that are relevant to, we want to set goals, that activities for the goal that are relevant to what you're trying to achieve. So that one we're not changing. And then T, time bound and tiny enough to repeat every day. So really, I want you to really think about yourself in your highs and your lows, and think about, in those highs and in those lows, what are the smallest things that I can repeat and do every single day in order to help keep me in a space where I'm moving towards this goal and not staying in the same position, even if it's one push-up. You get what I'm saying? So I want everybody to remember that to become something new, you have to first unbecome. And to unbecome is uncomfortable, right? You have to shed the old skin. You have to be uncomfortable. But when that new skin comes, it is shiny, it is radiant, it is glowing, it is beautiful. And so brace yourself. Find affirmations that are positive, that are going to give you that positive reinforcement when you're having your lowest of lowest moments. Try out the micro steps, the environment adjustments, and that, reapproaching of the SMART goals. So in my opinion, one last thing, when it comes to health and when it comes to weight, I would only recommend you set 2 or 3 goals. Reason why is because when you set 2 or 3 goals, and very specific goals, you're able to achieve them much easier, and you can add on in the next year instead of trying to set 10 goals for 1 year that keep your eyes in many places at once. So I'll share mine with yours on the note of vulnerability, because this show is also about vulnerability, right? My 2 goals, the first one is to get my fasting sugar below 5 millimoles per liter. That might confuse a lot of people, like, what are you even talking about? So when our body is at rest, there is a certain level of sugar that stays in your blood in order to help you, do things like, walk around and sleep and stay awake and power your brain and all that stuff. So sometimes our sugar levels get messed up based on things that we do. For me, I know it's a genetic thing. And I noticed recently that my fasting sugar levels are higher than what they're supposed to be. So my one goal for this year is to get them below 5 so that I can focus on preventative care instead of treatment. Because if I were to leave it, I'd probably, develop diabetes by the age of 30, which is what I don't want. So that is my one goal. It's a health goal, okay? The second one is to get my body fat percentage at 20%. It is still within a healthy level for a woman, but it is further than what I'm doing right now, because now I believe my body fat percentage is about 30. So, and then the third one is also to find a dietitian. Okay, I need to do that. So if you find that you're able to share yours, please do comment, DM me, share them, and let's talk about them. Let's put them out there and let's work on them. You've been listening to Healthy Hypocrites, the show where we get real about wellness and grace. And I'm Tumi, and until next time, remember that we do not need to be perfect to be healthy. We just need to be honest and intentional and present. And I'll see you next week.